Hello, beautiful. I'm your host, Nicole Goff. Welcome to the Ecstatic Life Podcast, the podcast for women who want to live fully embodied, nervous system regulated, open-hearted, radiant, and alive. Here we explore the practices, modalities, and lived rhythms that return you to yourself, to your heart, to your body, your intuition, and your divine spark. This podcast is for women who are ready to awaken their inner creatrix, activate their inner manifester, and remember, an ecstatic life isn't a destination. It's the path we're walking together. Hello, and welcome back to the Ecstatic Life Podcast. I am your host, Nicole Desiree Goff, and today I am here on a solo episode to chat about a pretty deep, dark subject, shadow work. So I just got back in from a 7-day retreat, and on my way in, I had this feeling come over me, this knowing, this message came to me that I was going into shadow work. I was heading in to do some serious, deep, dark diving into my soul and excavating some really heavy shit. And I was right. That is exactly what happened. So today I want to pull back the curtain or open the closet, so to speak, on shadow work. And it's not that everyone needs to attend a 7-day intensive retreat to do this kind of work, but it is because each one of us carries these shadow parts that are actually quietly running the show if we don't bring them into the light, if we don't expose them, and if we don't deal with them and integrate them. The work that I did was messy and uncomfortable. At times it was even a little scary, enraging. It was definitely deep work that I did. But it was so liberating. And on the other side of it, I came out knowing myself so much better, so much more clear on what is actually mine and what does not belong to me. So I pose this question to you. What if the things you dislike most about yourself were never actually yours? What if they were simply stories that you inherited? Carl Jung is the one who coined this term shadow. And the shadow is the parts of ourselves that we have hidden, rejected, disowned, kept in the closet, right? Those skeletons in the closet that we have. The shadow is not evil. It is not our bad side. It is not something that is wrong with us. These parts that we have hidden away usually develop because someone somewhere along the way made us feel that it was unsafe to live these parts, to express these parts of ourselves. Some really common examples of this is the part of ourselves that is too much, the things that we might tell ourselves, or we're told that we have integrated, I'm too much. Or it could be, I'm not enough. I'm selfish. I'm unworthy. I can't get angry. It's not safe to get angry. Good girls don't XYZ. It usually says, if they only knew, they would know I'm unlovable. So the shadow isn't the emotion. The shadow is the belief that certain emotions or qualities are not allowed or unlovable. As children, we depend on belonging. It is our survival. I mean, obviously, if our parents reject us, in the wild, we would die. So we acclimate to our parents' moods, our parents' tempers, our parents' judgments of what is right or wrong or good or bad about us. So if expressing a certain part of ourselves threatens this connection with our parents, then we'll hide it. Because as little kids, we never ask, what's wrong with my parents? We see our parents as gods. So what we do is we internalize it. What's wrong with me? And unfortunately, those adaptations, those survival strategies can then get weaved in and become part of our personality. They can become part of our identity. And through this experience on the 7-day retreat, part of the catharsis work that we were doing, I realized how many of these stories that I was carrying from my childhood. So I had stories about my worthiness, or actually my stories about my unworthiness, my being bad, my being wrong, my being too much. And I realized that these weren't the objective truth, right? I knew on an intellectual level that these weren't objective truths. They were survival stories, but nonetheless, they still lived in my body as if they were the truth. I was still carrying the shame and the unworthiness and the desperation for love and approval like they were true stories. And one of the things that I realized through this experience is that our nervous systems would rather carry these painful, familiar stories, hold on to these old stories, rather than face the uncertainty of who we are without these stories. Because it does take a bit of an ego death in order to do this shadow work. Another thing that I realized that I had been carrying around that was unresolved and that was really weighing heavy on me. And this was something that I was actually unaware of in my conscious mind. The stuff with the childhood programming, I was aware of those stories. I had done work around those stories, but the story of it being unsafe to get angry, unsafe to rage, I did not realize how strongly that lived inside of me. So I had a cathartic experience during this retreat of letting that rage out. Really, really, really raging, getting so deep in it. I had other kind of rage room. I had actually put on a rage room inspired ecstatic dance. So I facilitated this cathartic release through dance, through using pool noodles to hit things, punching pillows, moving it through our bodies, screaming. So I thought I had done some of this work, but this retreat, this facilitation took me to a level that I have never been to before. And I did not know that there was this pent up rage living inside of me that I had never felt fully safe to let out. I was willing to go to a certain point with it, but not to get wild. And this wasn't an uncontrolled rage like breaking windows or hurting people or, it wasn't like that. But I really got at the core of it. And this was in a very, carefully curated, facilitated, safe space. The director has been doing this for over 40 years. He's very, very skilled. So I just want to preface that this isn't just something that, I was just allowed to just go buck wild, and there was no actual danger of me hurting myself or others, or just to preface that, this was a very, very safe container to have this experience. But what I discovered is that I had been carrying 25 years of unexpressed rage since my sexual assault. I had been carrying this angry no that I had never let out. And this experience was able to bring me to a place to use my voice, to use that no, and to use it in a way that was so powerful and so liberating. Because through experiences that I have had through sexual assault, through abusive partners, through, times where I was very unsafe with men, I learned that, it wasn't safe to get angry. It wasn't safe to be loud. It wasn't safe to express my no. And that when I did these things, I got punished physically in horrible ways. And so I learned to shut that down. I learned to control myself. I learned to be tempered, and I learned that it was easier to say yes, even though it was a no. Even though in my body it was a no, it was easier to say yes to men than to have the no spoken and not respected. And so what happened was I ended up channeling this no. There were tens of times where I said yes, but meant no. So I ended up channeling this and allowing it to just build and move through me in a way that felt so liberating. But at the same time, I allowed this cork to come undone, and I let this anger out. I let it loose that had been bottled up. And for a bit, I thought to myself, I will never not be angry again. But then after a little counseling by the facilitators, afterwards, about 2 minutes of dialogue, I felt really good and I was not angry anymore. But accessing that deep well of rage that I didn't know was there was so, so liberating. Another shadow part that was liberated was my shame. And this shame had been living in my body for almost my entire life, since childhood. So, not just from the aftermath of the sexual assault, but around my sensuality, around my childhood curiosity about my body. So since I was a little kid, a little probably 5-year-old, when I was told that it was bad and wrong to be sensual and embodied in that way, I had been carrying this shame of a core essential part of who I am. And this initial shame, this initial wounding had led to so many others that built upon that in adolescence and young adulthood, even in my adult years, things that piled on top of it and built into this bigger, massive shame that all circled around my sexuality and my sensuality, what it really like my feminine essence. And so the beautiful thing about this experience of doing this shadow work was that I was able to move it. I was able to breathe it and feel it and allow it, and to bring it out of the closet, to bring it into the light, to hold it and look at it like something that was this beautiful, delicate little thing, not a shameful monster in the closet, but this beautiful, beautiful little part of me that I had been covering and hiding and denying and turning into something that was wrong and bad, and allowing these stories from my childhood and my adolescence to dictate how I move in the world. And so to take it out of me in that way and bring it to the light and see it for the innocent, beautiful little thing that it was also so liberating. And I talk about this all the time, and we know that these emotions like this shame, they live in our bodies. And when they are not attended to, many times they become disease. So when we suppress these emotions, when we suppress these parts of ourselves, when we compartmentalize them, when we block them down, they increase physiological stress. They increase physiological symptoms. It's like all of the effort that we are using to hold these things under so that they don't come to the light, so that they don't come to the surface, so that rage or that shame or whatever the too much, too big, too scary feeling is doesn't come out of us, doesn't get exposed, doesn't expose us. We use all of this effort to keep it contained, and it becomes this encapsulated thing held in our bodies. And research even shows that suppressing these emotions leads to higher levels of cortisol, increased sympathetic nervous system activation. So that's your fight, flight, freeze, fawn, greater anxiety and depression scores, reduced relationship satisfaction. So there are studies that show marked decrease in your well-being from not allowing these things to move through us, not allowing the emotional arc, not allowing these feelings to be expressed, not bringing the shadows into the light. There was a study from Matthew Lieberman, and him and his colleagues found that simply labeling emotions reduces activity in the amygdala while increasing regulation in the prefrontal cortex. So feeling emotions isn't losing control, it's actually how we regain control. And I would even say, maybe not control, that might be the wrong word. It is how we regain stability, balance, homeostasis. So bringing these things into the light for me, bringing up this shame and bringing it into the light was liberating it from my body, was liberating it from my psyche, from my story of who I am. And in liberating the rage, in moving that to me felt like trauma processing. That to me felt like taking that very traumatizing experience that happened to me and flipping it on its head, rewriting that story. Because trauma isn't only what happened, right? It's not the event. Two people can experience the same event. One might be traumatized by it, while the other is able to process it, move through it, and it doesn't haunt them for the rest of their lives, like the first person. So trauma can be what is remaining, what is unfinished. So many trauma researchers emphasize that overwhelming experiences can leave defensive responses incomplete. And therapists that safely integrate body awareness, emotion, and meaning making can help people recover. So I feel like this is exactly what was being done in this cathartic release and reenactment that I took a part of. This experience allowed me to complete that arc. It allowed me to finish what was before unfinished and unresolved inside of me. So before we wrap up, I do want to mention what this kind of shadow work is not, right? So this is not about becoming stuck in your trauma, reliving it. So this is not a exercise in wallowing in your emotions, staying stuck in the pain, forever digging at it and never being satisfied with the depth that you go to. This is not about living in victim consciousness for the rest of your life. It's also not about blaming your parents, making excuses for what you're doing. And this was a huge part of the seminar that I attended, taking radical responsibility for what you do with your story today. That might have been your story 25 years ago, 40 years ago. Those things might have happened to you. Things were done to you that were not in your control. They left marks. They changed you. They shaped you. But you are in control of what you do today, the decisions you make from this day forward, how you allow or do not allow those events, those stories to rule your life and to control who you are today. Shadow work is about integration and becoming more whole, reclaiming these parts of ourselves that we have abandoned to survive, integrating the shadows, the things that we feel shameful about, the things that we hide, integrating them into ourselves and saying there are no bad parts. There are no wrong, bad, dirty, horrible parts that we have to hide. They are just pieces of me. Shadow work is not about saying that these parts of me are an excuse to be a bad, wrong, hurtful person or to do bad, wrong things to others. I also want to say that you don't need a 7-day intensive retreat. You don't need necessarily to work with a trained therapist to do this kind of work. However, if you have some deep stuff like I did, it's highly, highly recommended. There are practitioners out there that can truly hold space for these kinds of things. But you can access some of this healing by yourself on your own with just a few minutes a day, really. Just a few minutes of getting quiet and looking inside and asking yourself some questions. What emotions feel unsafe for me to feel? What parts of me do I judge the most? What did I have to learn to do or not do in order to feel loved? What stories am I carrying that don't belong to me? So sit with these questions, journal with them a few minutes, see what comes up for you. And then when the bad, wrong, shame, anger, dirty emotions, however you label them, when these feelings that are difficult to feel or these triggers that make you want to hide inside of yourself, when they come up, sit with them, be present with them. Ask them, what are they here to teach you? What message do they have for you? And ask yourself, how can I release this? How can I release this story? How can I release this baggage that is not mine? How can I bring these shadows into the light a little bit more and be more true to my authentic self? Noticing how your body responds, noticing where these feelings live in the body, being present with them, giving them a voice even. This is how the healing begins. This is how we begin to integrate the shadows. Because really, the healing is not about becoming someone new. It's not about becoming a new, better, shiny version of yourself. It is about becoming more authentic by cleaning away what is built up over top of our true selves, the stories that we have told ourselves or that have been integrated that say we can't be. It is not safe to be who we truly are. It's in remembering who we were before we learned to protect ourselves, before we learned to hide these parts of ourselves. Your shadow is not your enemy. Your shadow is not the bad, wrong, dirty, awful part of you that you need to keep hidden away. Your shadows are likely the younger parts of yourself that have been waiting to be healed, to be loved, to be brought into the light, to be integrated into your whole being. So if this episode stirred something in you and you'd like to go deeper into this work, I invite you to reach out about working one-on-one. It can be really, really helpful to have someone with you on this journey, someone who is there to support you and guide you through meditations, visualizations, activities, embodiment work that can truly, truly help to bring these shadows into the light and to integrate them. So if this is something you're interested in, please reach out to me. I am on Facebook and Instagram at Nicole Desiree Goff. Reaching out through social media is the fastest way to get a hold of me, or you can email me at nicole@nicoledesireegoff.com. Until next time, I love you all. Happy shadow integration. Bye. Want to dance with me? Go deeper with me? Have me in your back pocket, literally? Join the Ecstatic Life Academy on the Go Collab app, link in show notes.